Welcome to the Future is Borderless podcast with David Nilssen. We feature top entrepreneurs and thought leaders from around the world, those who bring a global mindset and a unique perspective to their life and business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, David Nilssen here. I'm the host of this show. On the Future is Borderless, I connect with business leaders from around the world who have what I call a borderless mindset. And here we're sharing ideas, innovations, best practices, things that can be applied to both your personal and professional life, ultimately helping us to grow in a rapidly changing world. This episode is brought to you by Doxa Talent. Doxa Talent helps businesses to source full-time, highly skilled people from all over the world. And as a result, these companies can scale faster, increase margin, and improve culture. To learn how to scale your business with offshore resources, go to doxatalent.com. All right. Well, I'm really excited for today's show. My guest is Dave Anderson. Dave is a seasoned entrepreneur with 25 years of experience as CEO running multiple companies. His leadership journey, which we'll get into as the show evolves, has spanned roles from a college fraternity president to working at the White House. And he's navigated a lot of different business ventures, including off Madison Avenue, which he started from his garage using a Visa, as I understand, which is a thriving marketing agency celebrated for its growth, its impact, and also some acquisitions. He's also leading Lighthouse PE, which is a SaaS-based software company. And I've known Dave through EO, and I can tell you that he's had a tremendous influence on global entrepreneurship as playing many roles in EO, but ultimately leading him to the board of directors, where he actually led us as chairman in his final year. He also authored a book called Leadership is Not a Title. It has a great cover, by the way. So if you check it out on Amazon, for some reason, it really stands out to me. And he's mentoring entrepreneurs globally. And I just note that I think the extensive travel and international roles that he's held have impacted, and I guess in some cases, people might say enhance his understanding of the diverse leadership styles that exists. And he uses those lessons to coach entrepreneurs and help them build high-performing teams. So Dave, welcome to The Future is Borderless.
Oh, thank you, Dave. It's great to be here. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, this will be fun. You've got a lot of experience across a lot of different categories, but I really want to focus the conversation on leadership. You've started and scaled multiple businesses. You've been on multiple boards, including chairman of EO, which I talked about here a few minutes ago, and you speak on these topics regularly. So I figured we should be able to riff. I don't like to overly script these, so I figured we'll just start with a couple of questions and follow the cookie crumbs from there, if you're okay with that.
That sounds great. I mean, I'll get rid of all of these pre-questions you sent me, and we'll just go from there. Is this a political interview where you've provided all of the questions up front, and I'm ready to my scripted answers? Now, that's awesome. Let's see where this takes us. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, let's talk about the book. I talked about this earlier. It's Leadership is Not a Title, right? Or Leader is Not a Title, I should say.
Leader is not a title.
That's
exactly it.
Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write it, and how does it differ, in your opinion, from other leadership books that are out there?
Great. Leadership journey as I had started companies. You mentioned all the ones that are successful. Thank you for that, David. You didn't mention the ones that crashed and burned, during the entrepreneurial journey that we're on. And it was a way for me to help put my thoughts in perspective. Really, what is a leader? You and I, and I'd like to say unique, but there's almost 20,000 others of us, are surrounded by leaders through our membership in EO. And we see so many different leaders. And I was, sometimes I feel really good about myself, and other times I look, oh, that guy's got $100 million company, and that person has, this. And I was trying to really figure out what a leader really is. And I really went back, as you mentioned, through my experience working for leaders, which I was fortunate enough to work in the White House for two presidents of the United States, and look at leadership through that way. And what I really walked away with was what the title is that you don't have to have a title of CEO, VP of something, um, chairman, whatever. We're all leaders in our different businesses, our communities, our families. And even in my own company, some of the most influential people are, I don't want to, down the ranks, let's just put it, because they're looked at, they're respected, they know their voice carries away. And, this kind of helped me realize I am not a big flamboyant extrovert, anything like that, to really define what a leader is.
Yeah. You talked about you worked with two US presidents. Maybe share just a little bit about what your capacity there was. And then I'd just love to hear your observations about what you saw from them. Like where were they great and where was there maybe opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was pretty young now. I'm always hesitant to say which presidents because in this day of political
Fair.
uproar may cause people to listen more attentively or quite frankly just shut you and me out based on what that is. But let's say it's just safe to say that I am all this gray hair, I am older, so it is not a recent president, let's put it that way, in any way, shape, or form. And I honestly, Dave, was in my early mid 20s when I kind of fell into this, and I worked in the executive office of the president. So, right there. And I had a role where I traveled the world with him as the White House main representative, wherever he would travel, to summits, to campaign events. But I've been to NATO meetings, I've been to international drug cartel, not cartel, but international drug prevention conferences with world leaders all around. I've been in rooms with everybody from Putin to Assad to that around the world. And through my leadership journey, I got to observe so much. Believe me, nobody was asking for my opinion on any type of policy or anything like that, but I helped make a lot of stuff happen. And some of the biggest takeaways I learned are so relevant to us in business as I began and went through my entrepreneurial journey. Number one was the people we build around us. Nobody can be president of the United States without a solid chief of staff, a solid secretary of state, a solid defense secretary. I've been in rooms where these leaders always respectfully and in the right way would challenge the president. Are you sure about that? Is that the right way? Here's where we've gone. And it just showed me the importance of the people that we build around us makes us and breaks us. Yes, leaders need to be strong leaders in that role, but it's not a solo job by any means at all. So you have to surround yourself. I also, whether you agree or disagree, you got to stand for something. You got to have a guiding principles, freedom, purpose. Let's take the left and right, the polarizing stuff out of it. But what do you really in your heart believe in? Why are you sitting in that office to do things? How applicable is that to us in business? Having our purpose, our whys, because that's what guides you, as you go. I also learned that if you get into leadership to be popular, get out, because if you are making decisions based on what's going to make you popular, you're not a leader. Leadership is about making the most difficult decisions. I think President Obama was the one who actually said, by the time stuff gets to my desk, there is no easy answer because you have all the rest of the people around you. And how applicable is that to us as leaders in our businesses? I have a whole list I could go through, but I think that's a great, top 10. The people stand for something, and you're in this role, you're a leader to make the difficult decisions to be successful.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. And this is sort of, we're bouncing around a little bit, but I warned you in advance. You talked about the president, but, at one point you were the global chairman of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which, at the time, I think had 17,000 members worldwide. All of them own businesses. All of them are used to sort of doing things their way. Like, how challenging was that for you to sit in the seat, which a lot of people, although we had and have a CEO, a lot of people look at that as, you know, the de facto CEO or someone who's got a lot of authority in that regard. But they also, many of them believe or question a lot of the things that are done along the way. So how did you think about trying to blend, the different members and their experiences, their cultures to do ultimately what was right for an organization that encapsulated them all?
Yeah, great question. And Dave, you're living some of this as a board member now. The whole dynamic of a global organization, a global board, throws a completely different twist into leadership because and this, obviously as president of the United States or chairman of an international, the words you choose and the words you use every day, while they make a huge difference in our international, in our businesses that we have in our home country. Now, Doxa, that's an international company that you have in what you do, but it is magnified tenfold when what you say in one language, one country can mean something very different someplace else. Now, I wish I could say I was perfect in always choosing the right words and you deal with the ramifications. But most importantly, in those roles, and again, as a leader, no matter what you are, as a business owner, or even in our own homes, what I learned was the importance of listening. Listen first. Don't talk first. Listen first. Ask questions. Can you explain that to me? What does that mean to you? So that you can choose the right words in the right situations at the right times. I also found that what I consider probably the number one role of leadership is you're the number one motivator. You have to be able to motivate people no matter what language they're in, no matter what country, around a common cause, a common outcome, common goals that you can work towards. And you can't, especially in an organization like EO or community, in that you can't just tell them what it's going to be. You have to motivate people. And I believe there's a big part of that in business. Yeah, we give them a paycheck every month, but there's a difference between people doing what they're told and really motivating people to be behind a cause, a purpose, a goal that you're going for. And that's really what I learned. And what I learned is how I did that in the USA versus Europe versus Pakistan versus when you go to India. It's very different, and you need to learn. Really, the EO global board member, chair or not chair, you're really an ambassador, is one of your biggest roles. I believe it is the most significant. You're an ambassador, and luckily my background working in the White House for two presidents, I got to see tons of diplomats and ambassadors at work.
Yeah, I remember. So for those that are listening or watching, when I was first joining the EO board, there's a period of time at which you're onboarding as a new board member, and then when you become you're ratified as a board member, then there's a group that's also leaving simultaneously. And Dave and I were sort of passing ships in that, but I got to actually watch you as chair for the last 6 months. And, one of the things that I was really impressed with is, technically your seat carries a lot of authority in the room. And oftentimes you were the quietest, listening to all the different points in perspective. So it was great. And one of the things that I really appreciated about what you were starting, and now I've had a chance to be a part of and helping to carry forward and even further integrate, is this professionalization of the way the organization operates. I want to talk a little bit about some of the work that you've done outside of EO as a board member and coaching entrepreneurs. Talk to me about how to assemble a board. When you think about whether you're trying to elevate a current board or build a new board, like what are some of the things that you would suggest to an entrepreneur in terms of thinking about how to do that?
Well, yeah, great question, Dave. And I'm a huge advocate of boards. Now, a lot of times people just think of, corporate boards, governance, finance, all of that. But advisory boards for many of us is a great way to go. The number one step is build a board matrix of what do I need? Where am I strong? I'm a pretty good finance person, have a degree in finance, come out there, but there's a lot of things I'm not really strong in. Say you're raising money, through a venture or whatever. Add a person who has expertise in there. If you're in an industry that has a lot of regulation, you need that lawyer side to it. If you're trying to scale a business, add somebody who has scaled the business from 5 million to 50 million. So there's no cookie cutter board template, but you should absolutely build a matrix and give a lot of thought to what is needed and what is not needed. I will also say you don't need the most well-known or the heroes that we all go, oh, I want that person because they did that. There are Jim Collins, Good to Great, one of my favorite books, talks about the quiet leaders, the non-ones. There are so many people who have accomplished so much that they could be living next door to you and you don't even know. Seek out the people that have been there, have done that, who quite honestly have no stake in if they say something that's going to piss you off or not. You
Yeah.
need the people around you that are going to tell you what nobody else you pay will, what's doing. You also absolutely need to have the person who really isn't focused on today or tomorrow, but is pushing you to look not 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out. And there's no time more appropriate that for than the evolution of AI going right now. If you're any type of business that is dependent on supply chain, world events can change your business literally overnight. We've both seen, Dave, a CEO says something stupid during a crisis and their revenue drops, 20, 30, 40, 50% the next day.
Yeah.
You need somebody who's going to help keep you in line, to be blunt.
Yeah, I love that. I actually, I think early on in my career, I made the mistake of inviting people onto my board with a brand name, like where I was impressed by what they had done or the business they had run or sold or, what have you. And ultimately what I found is exactly what you're talking about, which I want to drive home is it's really the board should round out the competencies that we don't have, right? And push us in a way that those that are on payroll just cannot, period. It's funny. I think I consider myself a go-to-market guy, right? If we're talking sales, marketing, or business development, that's something I'm excited about. I feel competent and confident in. But it's some of the other stuff. It's the finance and acquisitions. It's the technology. And I find myself gravitating more towards go-to-market people because they speak my language at my pace and the things I'm interested in. But what you really want to do is round out what you bring to the table with other individuals. Who are looking at other aspects of the business with you.
Yeah. Dave, you're absolutely right. There's a term that I'm sure you've heard before, but it's a psychological term called confirmation bias,
Yep.
that we seek out people who agree with us, who know what we know, who are going to validate us more than tell us we're full of shit. So you have to challenge yourself on the confirmation bias that's why the matrix is. And one of the top things is this person is not me. This person is not like me is what you really, really need. Now, sometimes we don't want to hear it. And sometimes, you never want to get to the point of, oh my gosh, I have a board meeting. I don't want to hear from them. But don't add the assholes to your board, but definitely find the people that are going to challenge you.
Yeah, agreed. If you look back on your experience on the EO board, and maybe we'll open this up to any other board experience you've had, what's the most challenging situation or most challenging sort of problem that you had in one of those situations, and how did you kind of work your way through it?
Toughest one, I'm going to go back to what I said before, is you can tell CEOs, you can tell executive team members, you can experience share with them, which is at the core of what EO is, on things that they should do, need to do. So many people struggle with pulling the trigger on those tough calls. How many people keep the bad person around too long because it's easier than terminating them? How many people, and I'm sure you've gone through this with your company, one of the most difficult things is, I'm a huge fan of Marshall Goldsmith. I'm a certified Marshall Goldsmith coach, but what got you here won't get you there. And we as CEOs, or whatever title we have as leaders, going, this person has taken us as far as we can, and now we need to go to the next level. And that's a really tough thing to do, because these people become our friends, we're loyal to them. But the number one thing I coach people on, to the point that they get tired of me saying, what got you to this point? Will that get you to the next point? And to get to the next point, you have to make decisions. There's never easy answers there. It's not like, oh, we'll switch from purple to blue on the color of that product. No, whatever it must be. So for me, and to the people listening, get that book. If you haven't read it, read it again, and just put the things in place that are going to force you to go from here to there. Does that make sense to you? I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's I think many of us are so far in the weeds in our own business that it's hard sometimes to pick your head up and see it from the macro view and really downstream, right? Like you said it earlier about boards. My belief is that boards should be talking about 3 to 5 years down the road, or even longer, not the next, 12 to 24 months, to the extent that it has that ability. I want to talk a little bit about your coaching. So you talked about being Marshall Goldsmith certified. And I have an assumption just based on my interactions with you, but why do people come to you, and why would they hire you as a coach? What do you consider your sort of sweet spot?
I would say mine is really, what I really work to do with the ones that I work with, is building high performing teams. I'm a huge sports guy. I'm not very good at any of them, to be honest with you, and never have been, but I'm a huge sports fan. And if we draw the correlations between sports, whether we played in little league, high school, we went on to college, whatever it is, building high performing teams win championships. What's your championship? What's Doxa's championship? Is it a revenue number? Is it an acquisition? Is it so many VIPs that you have? What's your championship that wins the trophy? The only way you're going to win that trophy is by building the right team about you. Yeah, Dave, and yeah, you're an amazing leader. I've had an opportunity to work with you as a board member. I have a ton of respect for you, but I'm not going to insult you by telling you you cannot do it alone. You can't be quarterback, running back, defensive, safety, all of these to win championships. So I know, Doxa, you've built an amazing team and continue to do that. But in business, a lot of times we're like, well, my left tackle sucks, but I'm not going to fix it, but I'm going to get my ass sacked all the time. Yeah. Think about the most coordinated sporting performance thing in race car driving. Think about when an Indy car, F1 car, something pulls into the pits, that team jumps over the walls. Everybody has an assignment. Everybody has a specific thing to do. And if one of those mess up, it can cost them the entire race. Yeah. Do you have that team? So my coaching is where I come in and I help make some of those difficult decisions of that running back isn't going to get you where you need to be. They're too old. They've outgrown. They don't have the speed. They're strong, but they don't have this. My son's a baseball player, college baseball player. You can have the best fielders in the world, but if you don't have the right pitchers, you're rarely going to win. So I help come in and look at the team in total to build a team that's going to win you championships.
Yeah. I just a philosophical question. I want to dig into how you assess the team, but just at a high level, since you're a baseball guy, or at least, you appreciate sports, there's the Yankee strategy, which is pay up, pay big, acquire people who have, at least a history or a track record of doing well. Or there's the money ball, which is the A's philosophy, which is the other extreme. How do you think about, elevating talent from within versus acquiring talent from outside? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't believe pure money wins any type of championships at all. I mean, you have to find people who love what they do, who have a purpose, buy into what you're doing, who want to be part of a team. I mean, in the day of $60 million quarterbacks, which I think is ridiculous, by the way, Tom Brady took the approach of I'll make my money, but I want to make sure that there's money to go around to make sure that that I have the teammates, the team around me. So you have to, yes, top talent will cost you more, but there is so many moneyball factors that go into that. Are they great team players? Look at the LA Lakers, Shaq and Kobe. You know, they couldn't win anything because they spent more time arguing, until they got past it and all of that. So I believe Moneyball is more important than the Yankee throw all the money you can at somebody mentality.
Yeah. Well, I want to switch topics at this point. Well, actually, no, I want to dig in one more. I'd love to hear, because I think if I'm a business leader and I'm listening to this, you're somebody that I might bring in to help me assess my team and make some of those difficult decisions that I probably intuitively know are there, but I just need someone to help give me a little bit extra courage. How do you help them assess the team? Is there a methodology that you use?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll come in and I do a lot of one-on-ones. You gotta understand the landscape first and where the challenges are of what you're doing. My companies are EOS companies, entrepreneurial operating system. I quite frankly don't care what you use something scaling up with Vern or Pinnacle now and all of the rest. Make sure you have something in place that you can properly evaluate the people on your team. Are they hitting their goals, rocks, whatever you want, have to do. So you really start looking at what their capabilities are, what they're truly accomplishing, and what to do. And we also have to look a little bit about what they've done in the past. There's a big difference of getting a company to 1 million to 2 million versus 2 million to 20 million and 50 million, and what you need. So you really need to evaluate that. But what you said, starting asking this question, Dave, is spot on. 8 to 9 times out of 10, the CEO knows what they need to do. They need somebody to say, do what you're thinking, and make the change. Now, making the change is the harder part, of what you do. A lot of times I'm there to validate. And, I'm not an advocate of just sweeping people out to move on to. It's helping. I'm going to go back to sports. You look at a football team, there's probably 40 coaches on the sidelines, wide receiver coach, strength coach. The number of coaches just amaze me, running back coach, But in our business, we don't do that always for our team members. We don't bring in the coaches. We don't bring them the strength coach of what they do. So I do a lot of that, of coaching with those that show potential, desire, and will to learn and grow. A key tenet of EO, learn and grow, willing to go to that next level. I help that team grow, together and with new players. Sometimes you got to put somebody out on waivers and trade in a new person, but there's a lot of great people that can grow and be part of the overall championship.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that's, outside of financial distress, I've never met anyone who said I regretted letting somebody go for performance or culture fit issues. And, unfortunately, we often wait too long because we fall in love with the people, or we become friends, not friendly, right? Like those kind of things. influence our ability to make those decisions as quickly as we probably should. I
Yeah,
want
I
to.
don't know if you've talked about this in other things, but there's some great reading for your listeners out there about being kind versus being nice. And I would encourage people to look into that because all too often we're nice, we're not kind. And it's more important that we be kind than nice.
I'm going to make an assumption because this is actually a real struggle I had as an early entrepreneur. Like, if you take any assessment, what you'll find is social is my number one driver in just about everything. And so that human connection is really important to me. And it's easy, especially as a young entrepreneur, it was easy for me to blur the line between friendly and friends. But one of the things I used to struggle with, and I'm much better today, is giving direct feedback, because the nice thing to do is not hurt someone's feelings. The kind thing to do is to give them constructive feedback that elevates their game and helps them be more successful long term. And it took me, it's sad to say, probably a decade or more to really learn that. And today I really appreciate it. More than anything, if people can give me direct and honest feedback that helps us both move forward in a way that's productive, man, I'll take that any day over someone that's nice.
You summarized it beautifully. That's exactly it. When we're kind, we're helping people. When we're nice, it's all feelings. We're not really helping people when we're nice, kind. And it honestly goes to our kids and that too.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond just the workplace of what we do. But what I would say, it's the words we use when we're kind that we don't have to do it in a mean way. Phil Jones has a great book. It's exactly what to say. And it's like less than 100 pages, easy read. And it's all about how we phrase things. Never use the term why, because so it goes along. The kind thing is the best thing that we can do for people.
Yeah, in fact, it's actually whenever people ask me what are some of the entrepreneurial lessons I would like to share with others so they don't have to go through the same pain, that's one of the big ones for me. So I love that you brought that up. Dave, we're getting close to the end of time, but I've just one topic I want to address before we close, and that's really the topic of AI, right? You're in the off Madison Avenue, which is one of your businesses. It's a full service marketing firm. Does great work, by the way. I'd love to understand sort of how you see AI impacting your industry and specifically your business, and how are you guys thinking about evolving the business as a result of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, not that almost every business is being affected by AI, but without a doubt, in the marketing area of what we're doing. I'm a Doxa client also. You obviously know that. There are two primary things that I'm looking at long term in all of our businesses. The first one goes to Doxa is how do we incorporate a global workforce into our future? We've all seen, population trends, where things are going, what's going on. We're seeing education changing, the ridiculous costs of that. We're seeing a major shift. So one of my big thing is how do we incorporate a global workforce for the future going forward? The second one is absolutely around the AI. I am a big believer in that AI is not going to replace your job, but the people who know AI, how to use it, will replace you if you don't stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And we saw this 100%. This is how old I am, the late 90s, when the internet and the digital came, and everybody who was a traditional creative person didn't want they wanted to use pens and pencils, and yes, Macs were out and do stuff on there, but they still wanted to put it on paper or print it, and were very slow to adopt. And then all these kids coming out of school and everything ate their lunch. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, people came alive. I've lived this. I've been to this movie. I mean, I've seen this exact movie in the digital, the internet coming through. And so AI, what will be important is AI will do more and more of the tactical stuff. But my focus for my business is how do we move up the chain to be that strategic, the visionary, the really big ideas and less tactical. And I have to use global workforce and AI to do more of the tactical, the implementation, and my money will shift long term to paying for the big brains that are thinking way beyond what AI is and the creative ideas, and somebody who can interact with customers and bring that back. Does that make sense? I mean, our
Absolutely.
business will stay around, but what we actually do as humans versus what the computer does will shift, where strategy and smarts and all of that will just be significantly enhanced.
Yeah, I think you and I are 100% aligned. I think of, like, in the olden days, you used to write using paper and pencil, but when the typewriter came out, if you didn't shift to the typewriter, you eventually got left behind. The same thing happened from the typewriter to the keyboard, right? And now we think about AI, and I think we have to be focused on upskilling and even reskilling in order for us to stay at or above where things are trending overall. I am a big believer in a human plus AI, but I do believe that AI will increase the productivity expectations for many of our people, and to your point, shift where they actually spend their time. So I think,
What I will add to what I said is I believe that AI, we're already seeing signs of it, will be the greatest efficiency booster, productivity booster that we have seen since the Industrial Revolution.
yep,
And quite frankly, if you want to dip your toe into politics for a second, the only way to solve some of the financial problems that the US has is to significantly increase productivity by the workforce, because workforce productivity drives GDP growth. The only way to pay off the debts and all that we have is, you're not going to cut your way out of this. I mean, how
yeah.
many times in business do we know we can't cut our way out of it? So I'm going way off the ship here. Sorry, Dave, reel me back in. But I do believe, where you talk about how AI will affect my business as marketing, and that AI and the productivity growth we are starting to see results of already is huge.
Oh man, it's exciting. Yeah, I was at a conference last week, three speakers on AI. One of them said, listen, human plus AI strategy, very aligned with sort of the way you and I are talking about it. The next one said, well, look, people are getting it wrong. They're skipping to innovation, but really you got to start with operational excellence, move to customer experience, and then think about innovation. And then the third one was basically, you and I should shut down our shops because we're going to reach singularity next year. Computers will be smarter than everyone, and Terminator is real. And I just thought it was so fascinating that in the same conference, speaking to the same audience, you had three people with a very different perspective on the use case for AI, which basically means none of us really know, but I love asking the question because we're all thrashing about trying to figure it out. So
Totally agree. That's so funny. The only one thing I'll add, and then I'll completely shut up, is for your listeners, people listening to this right now, it's really easy to just start throwing AI tactics and different things against the wall and hope something sticks. It's imperative. And even if you're a board member or you're looking for a board, you have to have a strategy between your AI. Don't just throw crap at the wall and hope something sticks and works. Really spend the time building, just like we do for the rest of our business, is build the strategy of how you are going to implement AI into your business, short term and long term.
yep, I agree 100%. All right. Well, last thing that I want to just ask you, I know we're getting close on time, but if you could, I always love talking to entrepreneurs about sort of what they're learning now. I mean, one of the things I've found with most entrepreneurs is they're voracious readers. They're always trying to improve themselves. And I'm just curious, like, what are you focusing on for you personally?
It's interesting. I was going to go back when we were talking about before and looking to the future. I'm just finishing a great book called Lead by the Future. I'm pulling up Lead from the Future by Mark W. Johnson. And it's really, really interesting about, 5 years isn't enough right now. And what do you use your wildest dreams of what 10 years, 20 years now is going to look like, and then work backwards to get, to where you need to be. And I think that's really important right now. And it's just a great book, of how we as entrepreneurs, you said earlier, we have such a tendency to get caught in the weeds sometimes. We need to pick our heads up and really be looking to the future and looking. So I am reading that, yes, much like you and many others. I have too many open at one time, but that I'm a big audiobooks guy. So that's the one, that I'm reading, right now. My go-to books, I will tell you, the ones in my coaching and that I talk about, I already talked about the Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. The other one I'm a big other two I'm a big fan of is Who Not How.
Yes.
That you have, and 10x is easier than 2x. I think those three books pretty much summarize my coaching, what I believe in business, and how I go forward.
10x not two is easier than 2x, and Who Not How are two books that I would recommend as well. So I'll add your third to my reading list. But we'll leave it there. We've been listening to Dave Anderson, the author of Leader Is Not a Title. Dave, where can people go to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. My website is dwa@dwaleadership.com.
Awesome.
Website, get in touch with me through there, see about my coaching, speaking, board stuff that I do. I do have a lot of content on there, blogs about a lot of the topics we touched on today. So reach out, always happy to do a phone call with anybody, any way that I can help. Pay it forward, help others. I've made more mistakes than anybody can count. So if I can help anybody avoid some of those, please reach out, and I'm happy to help you avoid that pain and sleepless nights that I have been through.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, we'll get your contact, or at least your website, into the show notes, so those that are interested can follow through with that. So, but thanks again for being on the show today.
Thank you, David. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Future is Borderless podcast with David Nilssen. Be sure to click subscribe to future episodes so you can hear from more top entrepreneurs and thought leaders. And we'll see you again next time.